Today in our lineup here on The Now, we're remembering those impacted by the September 11th attacks as we spotlight a tiny Canadian town who stepped up in a time of need. Today, they're sharing the story of the bonds they formed that are still strong years later. American workers struggling with sleep now more than ever, and something that you would think would be helping could actually be making it worse. Plus, the solutions that are spreading, putting an end to surprise medical bills, even getting refunds for some.
18 years ago today, our country and world changed forever. 19 men hijacked 4 U.S. commercial jets. 2 flew into the World Trade Center. 1 crashed into the Pentagon, and 1 plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. Both World Trade Center towers collapsed. A total of 2,977 people were killed in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And now in 2019, 18 years after those attacks, most kids have only learned about 9/11 in school. They weren't born in 2001 and did not live through that time. So today we went to Mount Vernon High School to see how students there are learning about September 11th, 2001, the project aiming to open their eyes. 9/11 is a day that will never be forgotten for many Americans. People who were there in New York and those who were solely a witness through their television screens, like this teacher at Mount Vernon High School.
I was a sophomore in college when this happened, and I had gotten off the bus in the morning at IU. It was probably right around 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30, and that's right around the time when the towers are hit. And when I got off the bus, there was nobody on campus. And that's not how IU Bloomington is at 9:30 in the morning. And so it was just a really powerful experience that I can actually see that day.
For many students today, they were not alive for the terror attack on the nation. This has made teachers have to rethink how they approach this subject in class, making it less of another history lesson and more of a shared and relevant experience.
Having students be able to go through that process of thinking about how did it impact people that they do know, and then how does it even impact them even today?
Mrs. Sarah Terrell assigned her AP government class students an assignment regarding 9/11. It was to interview their parents about their memories of that tragic day. It's a lesson of holding value in our everyday heroes.
Someone who does something for the greater good despite the fact that they might get hurt in the process.
It's a lesson of not only the events that happened, but the impact it has on students today.
I feel like I personally probably don't think about it a lot just because I didn't have anyone who's affected by it, but I think that's why we have like remembrances and memorials for people like that, so we don't forget about what happened. Well, I think that it's necessary, and I think that it's a good idea that they do it, but I think not teaching it would just be ignorant.
And it's a lesson of strength after disaster and the power of unity in a nation.
Nationalism is a big thing, especially after 9/11, and that we've all come together. Despite our political differences. In history, we learned that you don't want to forget something because it could happen again.
And today, the town of Brownsburg unveiled a brand new memorial remembering and honoring those who lost their lives on 9/11. The 9/11 memorial is located at Arbuckle Commons in Brownsburg. It features a beam which was recovered from the World Trade Center in New York City after its collapse. 2 large storyboards at the memorial detail the events of 9/11 and the impact the attacks has had on the lives of all Americans. The hope is that this can help educate future generations.
I applaud the fire service for their dedication to bringing this monument to our town to forever remind our citizens and visitors of the sacrifices made on that fateful day 18 years ago. I further encourage the public to bring your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews to this site. Remind them of the attacks. Remind them of the resolve that our country displayed as she picked herself up.
Brownsburg officials say it took a decade to make the 9/11 memorial a reality. In 2009, Brownsburg firefighters learned that they could secure an artifact from the World Trade Center. And in 2010, 4 Brownsburg firefighters traveled to New York City to get the beam. Kyle.
The AC and fans probably still going pretty strong here at your house. We made it to 90 degrees again this afternoon. 20th time we have done that so far this summer. We may not be done counting just yet. Now, we did have a couple of thunderstorms, especially around Monticello earlier this afternoon. Quite a bit of rain and some lightning with that one. That one currently fading away, and I think most of us are going to be dry. But while it feels like the heart of summer, we only have about a week and a half of the season left here before fall fall arrives, 50 days until Halloween, and just after that, we will set those clocks back as daylight saving time comes to an end. But temperatures right now still feeling like they're in the 90s all across central Indiana. 93, the heat index in Indy. 86 will be the air temperature by 7 o'clock. We'll get into the middle 70s with partly cloudy skies here by 10. We'll keep that southwest breeze going. We'll talk about more heat and a chance for storms coming up tomorrow in a few minutes. Chris?
Today we're remembering the victims of 9/11. The names of nearly 3,000 people read aloud at the World Trade Center. Also being honored today, the first responders and others who lost their lives after becoming sick from toxins released after the attack.
Master Sergeant Max J. Belkey, United States Army retired. Dr. Yenene Betrue.
A new memorial put in place this spring now sits at the site of the attacks to honor those men and women. President Trump attending a number of events today, including a wreath laying at the Pentagon. 184 people lost their lives when American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the building. On 9/11, a group of passengers and crew members rushed the cockpit of United Airlines Flight 93 to try and regain control of the plane. That flight ultimately crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 40 people on the plane lost their lives, but thanks to the actions of those on board, no one on the ground was hurt. Later this half hour, we're going to be heading to the town of Gander, Newfoundland. That's where planes coming from Europe were diverted to on 9/11. The people there stepped up to help hundreds who found themselves stranded, forging friendships that continue to last. But now we're going to turn to the Bahamas. People continuing to assess the damage after Hurricane Dorian. Aid crews are in place and more help is arriving, but the road to recovery won't be quick. Thomas Hoppa on the ground there with the latest.
We're here in Nassau, here in the Bahamas. We landed here this morning, and here at the airport, we've seen so many people being flown in from the Avocos here to try and get some help. We've also seen plenty of military planes, cargo planes, and helicopters flying in and out of this area and bringing people into these shelters to be transported to some shelters like at the sports center. But we spoke with one woman who came here after her house was damaged to try to help her family.
I was currently in school. Seeing that the damages were so extensive, there was no longer a school. Like the whole bottom row of the school is totally demolished.
So we've been to a private airport where they are harboring some of these displaced refugees, and they say that they'll be coming in and out throughout the day. Reporting in Nassau, I'm Thomas Hoppa.
All right, Thomas, thank you. Let's get back to our lineup. We are looking at solutions and progress and putting an end to surprise medical bills.
Now for these incredible savings.
There's progress in solving an unexpected and expensive problem. We're talking about surprise medical bills. Annie Taylor explains.
More people are complaining to their elected leaders about surprise medical bills. Now, on average, they can be over $2,000, and more than half the country, including 6 states, just this year have passed laws to protect consumers. A Kaiser Family Foundation survey recently highlighted how widespread the problem is.
39% of respondents said that they had received an unexpected medical bill, and 41% of those bills were over $500. So I think that highlights why this issue is rising up to the level of governor's offices, and one of the reasons why we actually engaged in this project.
The National Governors Association is recommending strategies for how states can address out-of-network fees that are driving the problem. During medical emergency, the hospital or some of the doctors treating a person are out of network. Also, some of the tests, x-rays, or lab work that you can get done can also be out of network. Or when you take an ambulance to the hospital or are transferred between medical facilities, those can all be out of network. Now, one of the strategies outlined is to simply take the responsibility off the consumer altogether.
States that are establishing comprehensive protections typically have a prohibition against surprise medical billing in their legislation, basically meaning that providers are not allowed to balance bill those patients.
Other strategies including limiting the reimbursements on surprise medical bills and limit the patient's financial responsibility to in-network costs. Some states have even went as far as to require providers pay back consumers who've had to pay a surprise medical bill.
All right, Annie, thank you. And ahead in our lineup, we're taking a look at a special connection formed on September 11th, 18 years ago.
You just had to put yourself in their shoes. So then that makes your heart even bigger.
People in a tiny Canadian town who stepped up in a time of need are sharing the story of the bonds they formed that are still strong to this day.
Only on RTV6 News.
September 11th is a day that is etched into the memories of us here in the United States, but also people who are living elsewhere. A town in Canada made headlines after it was called into action after the terrorist attacks 18 years ago. Corey Rangel shows us how the town reacted when the so-called plain people arrived.
Gander, Newfoundland, a tiny town on an island in Canada.
6 traffic lights in Gander, and 5 of them are on one street.
Claude Elliott has lived here for more than 40 years. He served as mayor for more than half of them before he retired 2 years ago.
Oh, the people are generous. The people are, they love helping people.
After the terror attacks on September 11th, the FAA shut down American airspace for the first time in history. 38 commercial planes with nearly 7,000 people on board were diverted to this small rural town of Gander, its own population of less than 10,000 people.
What do we do with 7,000 people? We only got 500 hotel rooms.
Welcome to unexpected visit to Canada.
Passenger Kevin Turf, who lived in Texas, took this video from his seat on the plane.
We're in Gander, like a gander.
Weary passengers watched as day turned into night. Some ended up being stuck on their plane for more than 12 hours. But what the passengers could not see is the urgent effort by the people of Gander working to make sure the tired travelers would feel welcome once they got off the plane. The people of Gander opened up churches, schools, and even the beds in their own homes.
When there was 38 planes here, I knew there was a big impact. Well, our population almost doubled overnight.
Beulah Cooper jumped in the kitchen and made trays of sandwiches for the plain people, as the locals called them. Her work did not stop in the kitchen. She also brought people over to sleep and shower.
You just had to put yourself in their shoes. So then that makes your heart even bigger.
That big heart of Beulah's sank when she found out 2 of her guests lived in New York. Dennis and Hannah O'Rourke watched the unimaginable unfold back home.
Dennis used to like to hear a few jokes, trying to take their mind off what was going on.
But the jokes could not calm their agonizing fear. The O'Rourke's son, Kevin, was a New York firefighter.
It was emotional because she was a mother and her son was a fireman, and he was missing. He was off that day. He wasn't on duty that day, but she knew in her heart that he was there.
Beulah looked after Dennis and Hannah for 5 days before the couple was able to fly home. When they left, they still had not heard from Kevin. Then Hannah called from the States.
She said, Beulah, he's gone. She said they found his body under the stairwell.
Kevin had rushed to the World Trade Center and gave his life to save others.
That was hard. It was hard.
Beulah still keeps in touch with Hannah and the people she helped out. So do many others in Gander 18 years later.
On the first day, we had 7,000 strangers. On the third day, we had 7,000 friends. And on the 5th day, we lost 7,000 family members. That's how close we became to the people that was here.
In Gander, Newfoundland, Canada, I'm Corey Rangel reporting.
What a story, Corey. Thank you. And what happened in Gander is actually the basis of a book and a Broadway show called Come From Away. Today, the show's Twitter page remembering those who died on 9/11, posting a tweet saying the show wants to celebrate the extraordinary kindness of the people of Gander.
Thank you, Chris. The fire causes more than $500,000 in damage to a West Side bar. And tonight, investigators are trying to figure out how it started. The fire broke out at a High Neighbor Tavern near West 10th Street and Tibbs Avenue around 1:35 this morning. That's about an hour after the bar closed. No one was hurt. The Indianapolis Fire Department says the fire caused more than $500,000 in damage. It is still not clear what caused the fire, and it's not the first significant incident there. In September of 2017, someone drove through the front of High Neighbor Tavern, leaving the front of the building in need of extensive repair. No one was hurt. The bar had been fixed, but now the owners face more damage from the fire overnight.
And this afternoon, taking a live look at the 9/11 memorial in Indianapolis, which was established in 2010. You can see many people there that are stopping by the memorial today. At least we do have some nice weather to be out and about this afternoon, as we've had those temperatures climbing this afternoon. Many spots, again, getting to that 90-degree mark. It's 89 in Indy, 84 in Kokomo. In Bloomington, you've got some sunshine there. It is 87 degrees, and Storm Team 6 radar is fairly quiet for us this afternoon. Notice a few clouds, especially over the northern half of the state. I think we're pretty much done with the rain chances. Partly cloudy, not going to cool much tonight. A low of 70 degrees. The heat and humidity will be a factor again tomorrow. As we get to around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, our air temperature about 87, but look at that heat index. Once again, going to be around 92, 93 degrees or so. Your actual high temperature, 88 in Noblesville, 89 in Greenwood, and right around 90 for you in the Columbus area. So we're going to keep the heat and the humidity going. That may bubble up a few additional showers and thunderstorms here as we go into Thursday afternoon and evening. Should be on a fairly isolated basis, and then we'll fairly quickly move through the area and quiet things down before another system moves in on Friday. That'll be a cold front, brings a little better chance for some showers and storms our way, and will bring a brief break in the heat. Highs middle 80s on Friday, 81 on Saturday. A nice start to the weekend there with partly sunny skies. We'll keep it dry through Sunday, but warming back up to 87. Chris?
Let's start the Now News feed. A court ruling could mean billions of dollars for veterans. The court ruled the VA must reimburse vets for emergency medical care at non-VA facilities. This ruling found that the VA was actually wrongly denying reimbursements for veterans. GM's recalling more than 3.4 million pickup trucks and SUVs, and it's over a brake problem. Chevy Silverados, GMC Sierras, and Cadillac Escalades are part of this recall. More than a dozen injuries and more than 100 crashes have been tied to the issue. Airbus wants to know everything you do on planes. The company's testing an aircraft that has sensors all over it. Airbus even wanting to know how often you go to the bathroom. They say this information is going to be used to help make planes more convenient for passengers. New findings are showing that more women are working and making more money. U.S. Census data released this week shows working women are earning more than they did before the 2008 financial crisis. They're surpassing the gains for men. Women working full-time saw an almost 6% gain in pay over the last decade. That number didn't change for men. Now, while this is good news, the Women's Law Center's concerned momentum may not keep up.
Yesterday's data show that tax credits and food stamps and programs like that are helping people out of poverty, yet we're seeing some attacks on those programs.
Now, the difference between the amount of men and women with full-time jobs is at its lowest level on record. But the gender pay gap, it's about the same. Women earn about 82% of what men make. Census data also shows fewer households at the poverty level where women are the only breadwinner.
I think, poverty is a really outdated measure. I mean, it's something like 3 times the cost of basic food. And so it's just a really outdated measure of determining who is struggling to make ends meet.
Now, the poverty level is between $25,000 and $35,000 a year for families with 4 to 6 people. Advocates are now calling on the Senate to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act. It's already passed the House. That would help make sure women are paid fairly and equally. Some NFL stadiums are adding features to help those on the autism spectrum. The Philadelphia Eagles, Seattle Seahawks, and Minnesota Vikings have sensory-friendly rooms. It's a place those on the spectrum can go if the noise and excitement of the game is overwhelming.
That's a really wonderful example across the whole country of what an inclusive community can look like.
Now, similar areas are being built in other sporting venues as well as airports, theaters, and malls.
We're seeing colleges expand support to retain students that are on the spectrum. Within the next decade, over 500,000 young people with autism will age out of school-based programs, so they're graduating out of high school and into adulthood. So both college and job training programs are helping to provide really necessary services and supports in this area.
Now, the group that helped create the rooms in NFL stadiums think 1 in 6 people in the U.S. have sensory needs. That could go beyond autism as well, they say, thinking of those with Down syndrome, PTSD, and dementia. Well, if you're struggling to get enough sleep, you are not alone. Researchers now say a third of Americans are sleep deprived. Coming up, something you would think would actually be helping could be making it worse.